Hello, and welcome to another spooky, scary episode of Write Once, Read Many, this time covering chapter 26.3. Although we see the fairly non-spooky image of Eidolon's face. Eidolon? However, people choose to talk about Eidolon in their hearts. There's a new thing that I just noticed on the live stream that says like top fans. So when Plebeian Reads showed up just now, there's a #1 crown indicating the #1 fan. Hello. Oh, hi. Greg is here too. So for this week's themes, I'll do the question reminder in a minute. For the themes, I put spooky horror movie stuff. So I thought I'd better talk about that, while the spooky horror movie music was still going. And I feel like this is the chapter that fits that weird dark ambient music that I've picked the best. Vic says, I love my new hat about the crown. That scream was Taylor when she saw how uggo Eidolon was. Fucking got him. So, my audience participation reminder here is 26.3. This chapter has a subtle nod to the fact Brian's body is tougher than normal because of when he healed himself with Crawler's power in Arc 13. Can you think of any unstated truths like this one in other media? I'm just looking for general stuff where like, oh, that's like a cool thing where you can figure it out as a reader, but no one ever just says it. Vic says, he has a flat mask that she can see his eyes through, but is also fluorescent. I think it's fluorescent through Powers means in some really background way. Maybe not, but I guess. Oh, LEDs. The wiki says LEDs. I guess he couldn't like waste power usage on the mask, but now that you say it, I guess I can imagine it, but he is so cringe, just as you're saying. Greg says, I know writers who use subtext, and they're all cowards. Oh, and Greg got the #2 hat. He's #2 crowning it hard. And, they didn't go with gold for the #1 spot. They went with purple. And I really appreciate that. In randomizers, when I can change the color of a coin, I change it from gold to purple. Just ask Paper Mario. Vic says, he has, like, sleeves that cover his hands. His costume is literally what Ariana Grande would wear. Oh, my God. Are we ever supposed to go back to calling her Ariana Grande? Because, like, that's what her family name was up until a certain point, and then they decided that they needed to change the pronunciation for the public. For some reason, who could know with her? Anyway, So, are there any other themes? I only wrote the spooky horror movie stuff down. They sort of, like, amp up their... I don't know. you see some people being like really hardcore, and like when Crucible goes from having never killed someone to then like tricking someone and then killing them. Like, I don't even think they did the wrong actions by any means. Just that, it is a step up for the heroes to be matching the sort of Taylor-styled murder first, ask questions later. So, more escalation, the constant theme. Alright, so I'll just jump into 26.3. I'll say this is one of the longest chapters so far. By timestamp on the audiobook, I think it may be the longest chapter. It's an hour and 13 minutes. I don't think that's quite as long as some of the ones upcoming, but, let me see. Actually, I'm scrolling forward and I'm not seeing any ones that... Okay, it takes until Arc 29's interlude for there to be another chapter this long. And it's slightly longer. And then... scrolling back a bit. Yeah, so it generally looks like this may have been the longest chapter so far. So it's like one of the longest overall in the entire book. Even if I'm missing something on my little scroll back here, it's in the top 5. It doesn't feel that long. I don't know what it is, but this chapter doesn't feel that long to me. So they are they're going through sort of the start of the scene is that they're waiting at the outskirts of a town where they know that there's a contingent of the Slaughterhouse 9, and they have split their forces as previously indicated. So Taylor has the Undersiders as well as the Brockton Bay wards. And the Brockton Bay wards are the 3 we know all the time, Vista, Clockblocker, and Kidwin, but then also Crucible and Toggle, who we've seen Crucible, he joined the wards when Taylor was in jail during Arc 22, or like the week prior to that or whatever. And then Toggle was an unknown aside from this scene and one other scene in like a couple chapters. Vic says, Kidwin converts to another embarrassing version of his suit. It's true. He switches forms. He's all about switching forms. Man, it really is a big snub to Crucible and Toggle that they weren't introduced in the previous chapter. Like, Taylor looks over and, like, has a stoic nod to Vista, Clockblocker, and Kidwin, but just coincidentally, Crucible and Toggle hadn't been written into the scene. She's like, I don't know them. I saw 2 others, but I did not think to catalog them in my internal monologue. Let's see here. Yeah, Crucible is complaining about how he couldn't turn down Chevalier's request to back them up because it was Weaver's specific request. Clockblocker basically just says, you just say no. And then he's like, I can't say no to someone that important. And then he's like, but you can, and he'd respect you more. But the thing is, as much as Clockblocker is just say knowing right now, they actually do have a really solid team for this situation. It doesn't seem like Toggle is able to do anything, but everyone else is like pretty amazing for this operation. So they really luck into having good powers here, despite what Taylor says in her, like, oh no, did I put the wrong forces in the wrong places? Like, you're fine. It's fine. Grace would have been very good in this fist fight, but Gru did just fine. Let's see here. Yeah, so Toggle tries to make a joke about how Clockblocker is in love with Taylor, and then we get the background information that everyone's been dragging them online and thinks that Clockblocker is in love with Weaver. It's the only possible explanation for the things that happened in the first 22 arcs. Oh, the other alt account Vic shows up. Crown 3, and then my ship, it's real, is what she says. You know, it is odd that I think it's probably a white symbol, but I initially took it to be silver because it was on a number 2, so silver crown, but now it's silver number 3s as well. Can't be shipping on main. That's true. You've got to leave your main account because otherwise they'll know that you like when Dennis kisses Taylor. That's illegal. You know, Taylor apologizes or whatever, and then he's like, "Oh, it's not your fault, but it's a whole thing." And they sort of talk about the back and forth between how the Undersiders and the Wards keep the Undersiders and the sort of hero side work together to keep the city rid of new threats. We know from sort of things we will learn in Ward, like flashbacks and talking about the past and stuff, that the heroes at least fought against Barrow, who was one of the main threats who Tattletale was tracking before Taylor left the city. So it's not as though the heroes don't do anything. They fight some people, but it's clear that the Undersiders generally handle stuff so fast that the heroes don't even get involved in most situations. Vic said they kiss with their masks on. Real freaks. Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. So, Vista drags on Clockblocker too, saying that he sucks, and he used to be funny, but he sucks now. I feel like she is always giving him a hard time, and it's like, oh, remember when times were easy? He used to be funny, and now that things are bad, you're not as funny. And it's like, give me a break, Vista. Let Clockblocker live. Let him live and die. Taylor is probing the enemy fortress, which seems to be sealed entirely with some sort of Tinker technology that has closed up all gaps, so no bugs can go in. Not able to do anything through the vents. And, Vic says, Vista likes when people around her are more miserable than her. I don't know about that. She would like for Dennis to be chill and joking, but he is just too sad. Let's see here. And Taylor is asking people how they feel about the end of the world and how she thinks they're being really optimistic and stuff. Clockblocker sort of explains his position as like he can only move forward if he expects there to be a future. And she asks about how if he'll be devastated if the world still ends. And he's like, I'm good at handling devastation. Don't worry about me. Vic says, I agree with everything Clockblocker says here. Got a plan. Yeah. Clockblocker sort of talks about how there's so many powers. There's got to be one that breaks. Kid Win says wrong power in the wrong hands. And this is where we get Kid Win's suit explained. He's changed his previous configuration from the last chapter. It says that outside of a suit, the armored upper body folded down into a pair of gauntlets, allowing him to walk forward like a gorilla, the two halves acting as massive fingerless gauntlets. It wasn't pretty, and it left his head and body more exposed, but it let him maneuver inside. He seemed to muse for a second. Yeah, anyway, I just think that it's funny how he always looks like shit and can't read. He's the Dan Santa of their crew. Fixes. Like, what maneuvering is he doing? So, you know, she thinks there's a divide between the veteran members and the newer ones. And she's like, oh, that's interesting. Cool. Very cool. I'm Taylor. And then Clockblocker sort of explains more that he his idea of like the sort of his idea of like a gross person getting a power and of all the selfish, terrible people like being there, that they would basically all deserve it. And Imp is like, oh, I gotta get in on this. I can say something weird and make people feel uncomfortable. And then she's talking about how the guy's jacking off to nasty parahuman stuff. And then Clockblocker is rolling his eyes really, really hard at this. And then Toggle is sort of off-put in an image that I thought was worthy of commemorating. This is from the Parahumans wiki, and the artist of this image is DrStalker. It's on the Toggle page, but this is how DrStalker imagined that Toggle looked in this scene. And I agree. This is, yep. Great rendition. No notes. Love the art style. So Vic says, she just says parahuman, then someone Toggle thinks case. Yeah. Well, yeah, she says the freakiest, nastiest parahumans, and that is what that's what has Toggle say, case 53. So, you know, we'll go back to nasty old Eidolon's face. This is probably what that supposed character is got on his computer screen is Eidolon's face. Taylor's trying to tune out the conversation. Some more of their crew show up. It's Gru and Rachel. Vic saying, Toggle, don't be a bigot. Taylor probably thought of Pigot in that moment. Said, forgot she wasn't a parahuman. Yeah, Pigot's a thinker, probably. She says to herself. And then this is where Taylor's asking if the red hand's left, and Gru sort of starts, he goes, yeah, listen, about all that, it's, and then Taylor's like, let's talk about that another time. and says Crucible and Toggle could leave now. And both of them say that they'll stay. Crucible first, and then Toggle echoing. But yeah, they sort of hunker down as well. Rachel has some sort of minor body contact with Taylor that makes Taylor be like, "Oh, the human touch, dear God." And she begins to go read about Night Hag. Perian and Foyle are here now, so Kid Win is talking to them. Foyle's dialogue here is pretty good. More wholesome than you'd expect. Playing into every stereotype ever. Moving in before we'd even been on a date, but it's nice. And then they sort of, they talk. Clock Blocker's there. Perian and Foyle are talking about how they sort of split household chores and stuff, and it's like, oh, it's so sweet. And then Imp is being like, oh, but I'm about to start talking about them banging. And then Foyle keeps cutting her off, and Imp keeps being like, I can't be cut off. It's impossible to cut me off. And then eventually says they've got crazy good interior design because of Perian. And then, it's like, I did like a fake version of the joke. I didn't talk about them banging, but everyone thought that I was going to. So they already thought about it. So I had already defeated them in the mental game that is being Imp. Vista starts throwing the metaphorical knives at Imp because she's like, "Oh, you feeling lonely?" And then Kid Win roasts Imp, being like, "Ugh, I mean, she's probably walking in on people and watching them bang." And then Gru is like, "Yep, she watched me bang." And then Imp is like, "Lies and slander." And then Clock Blocker is like, "Ooh, I thought you were her brother, though. She watched you bang?" And then he doesn't remember the end of his thought because Imp uses her power. This is another one of those moments that you just kind of have to understand how the book is written and understand what's going on, but it's like he is about to disgustedly talk about them being siblings, and then Imp uses her power in an opportune way to cause all of them to forget what they were talking about. So then even Taylor thinks it was a puzzling change in the ambient tone. I almost gave the word for people to switch to high alert. Vic says, and Taylor almost calls it out. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's true. She's like, oh my God, there's like a stranger power acting on me or something. But then gets a text notification. Apparently the other group, which has, as we recall, Golem and the Chicago Wards, which include Cuff, who is, and I agree with Taylor that if they had swapped teams like side for side, that this side could have been like really, really well taken care of by the other team, but it's fine. They've got Cuff and Grace, who are really good melee fighters. They've got Wanton and Golem, who are also really good in like closed-in fighting and stuff. They've got Tecton, who's got the power armor and stuff. The problem is Tecton shouldn't be at the fight with 3 Shatterbirds. That's the disaster. Vic says, never split the party, but also, yeah, you gotta split the party. This is one of those games where you've got like 40 party members and you can only assign like 8 of them to any given battlefield. So you've really gotta, spread your forces in the proper allocations. So yeah, I'm worried about Tecton and his power armor getting the Shatterbird treatment. And I mostly just keep thinking about how good Grace would be in a hallway fight, because, like, I mean, come on. She's got the temporary invincibility and the enhanced timing, and basically she just, like, never fucks up in a fist fight because she's a thinker on that level. I mean, as soon as you've got enhanced timing, forget about it. So they're going inside. They're like, we're moving. And so she's trying to, by going inside, they're like deciding to move into these sealed building, but don't know how to get in yet. She tells them how the scouting didn't get anything inside, and she splits their forces. She leaves Perry and Foyle and Kidwin outside. They're staying so that they can sort of snipe at the building with both Kidwin and Foyle, and Perrion can keep them protected with, like, tripwires and stuff to know if anybody's coming. And then Gru is first using his power on only the outside of the building so they can't send out signals, but also so that they don't know that he's using his power on them fully yet. And then they, because, you know, they're trying to time it with the other location. And Taylor's thinking about how much of a ramp up this is with 10 Slaughterhouse 9 capes here and 10 at the other location. It's going from 4 to 5 from the previous fight to 20. And then, although, should we really be so surprised? And then, yeah, they all switch on flashlights and stuff, so they're in full, like, horror movie corridor hallways mode. Let's see here. Imp is complaining about not having gear, and Clock Blocker is basically doing the equivalent of sticking his tongue out at her, saying perk of being a hero. And apparently Taylor has some, like, kick-ass, like, light set up on her face where it's like her lenses light up, but then there's smaller lenses that are set around the larger ones. So maybe she has, like, spider face. Either way, like, Taylor's cool as hell, so the Slaughterhouse 9 should have thought about that before they fought her. And then, yeah, so Rachel's going with them on the dog. They've got Vista. At first, Vista tries to open a hole in the building, and, like, this ice stuff explodes out, as seen in the art here. So the, every time they sort of make a hole in the building, this ice stuff explodes out, and this is the stuff that, this is the weird tacky stuff that Taylor had felt, sealing all the edges. Whenever it gets sort of pierced, then this ice stuff just breaks through until it's filled in all the gaps, and it's, like, explosive with it, the force of the ice. They say a small glacier formed. Yeah, they make a couple tries, and then Vista comes up with an idea where she sort of warps an envelope of space so that none of it is, like, broken, but that there is still a hole through. then they, they discuss how theoretically a cloned Tinker wouldn't have enough of their own memories to have like good tech, but we kind of see that doesn't end up mattering that much. And this is specifically tech stolen off of like schematics from a different Tinker from the Toy Box group. So it doesn't really matter as much that they didn't have stuff to go on, because they did have like schematics that they turned into weird mannequin versions of the same stuff. Boop, 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 boop. And Taylor brings up some bug knowledge. She's like, when you open the door to a supermarket and that rush of air pushes out, do you remember feeling that? And they're like, yeah. She's like, that's to push out bugs and debris. You don't want none of that debris getting on the floor. See here. So, they get the new sort of Vista thing. They get the bubble that they can move through. And then Gru starts sending darkness in. He's able to sense who's in there. There's 3 murder rats. That he can sense right off the bat. He mentions a teleportation power that we do end up seeing, and it's like it's a pretty cool use case of a teleportation power. So I think that that Gru can sense when there's parahumans, but not when there's regular people. So Taylor is able to sense out the normal people with her bugs. I was getting lost in reading the thing again that Gru can't even get a beat on Breed's power. Breed is one of those gross capes. Disgusting. But yeah, Taylor senses on the top floor a gigantic giantman who we will later learn is a combination of king and hatchet face. And so he would normally be quite difficult to take down, but they do have the perfect power for him later on. Oh, wait, I guess he can't get he can get a sense on the Breed power. He can't get a sense on the other guy's power, which is the hatchet face king clone, which is also known as Tyrant. So they realize that it's hatchet face power when they all start getting their senses dimmed. This moment is kind of weird. After Gru turns off the power that like suppresses other people's powers, he goes, "That's one. Jesus, that's a rush." The other, I think it's the sort of power you need the built-in second sense to grasp. But yeah, like the fact that he gets a rush from using Hatchet Face's power, like that's so like strange. Yeah, I don't know. I like kind of wonder what that's supposed to mean. I don't know. Anyway, so they think about entering through the top floor, but Taylor's worried that people could get away if they did that, so she wants to enter at the bottom and basically work their way up and kill everybody on the way, who they, fight. So, she radios into Tattletale, but Tattletale's on the comms with the other team, saying she's busy right now. She wishes them luck when they she says, entering the fray. Looks like mannequins, murder rats, breeds, and one hatchet face hybrid. Got it. Gluck. And then she turns off the channel, you know. So you know, it's this very spooky building. It's all darknessified by the darkness. They know that it's got like the weird sealant on the outside. There are at least 6 capes who I would describe as like weird assassins. The 3 mannequins and 3 murder rats. And plus, you don't want to be near Breed. You don't want to be near Breed. And so, sensing people in the ducts, she's like, oh god, they can move toward us. And she's like thinking about the fact that Mannequin was able to avoid her bugs in the past and stuff. And so she's laying out tripwires and crap. One of the mannequins pops out. Vista shoots like some Tinker pistol that she has from Kid Win. I think it makes a lot of sense with capes who don't have any, like, Vista's got a really strong power and all. But it makes a lot of sense to just put a gun in her hands because it's like she does not have a basic just line attack at somebody. But yeah, she misses, and it sort of explodes the thing it hits. Clock Blocker shoots out a hand and captures Mannequin. Vista's about to shoot Mannequin with this like really powerful Tinker gun and possibly explode him, but instead Mannequin stabs the wall near him and has one of those ice explosions pop out. So apparently it's better to have ice exploding all around him and won't crack his shell, whereas probably the Tinker gun might have just disintegrated the outer shell. Means it's a pretty good gun. Vista, you know, they don't have a way out now, and Vista's like, I can make another exit, but like it would take a minute, and then Taylor's like, don't even worry about it, just we gotta keep moving. And then they go to the elevators. They see some people strung up. They're still alive, and they've got breed bugs eating them from the inside. And she's like, we'll deal with that later. She's just like running from room to room, being like, we can't do this part now. And I don't think she's making any of the wrong calls, but it's like haunting her. And then, let's see here. She's disturbed by how fast the murder rats can move around, saying she moved faster than she should have been able to considering her means of locomotion. But she had an exceedingly strong, flexible body. Let's see here. Oh, and they got the cone noses, of course. She feels claustrophobic. Again, this is why I kept bringing up how every person in the other group is like an incredible hallway fighter. And that the people in this group, they mostly just have Gru. But, and Gru because of other people's powers. It really helps that he can tap other people's powers. That's a really good power. So they move up the stairs, they're going, and then, you know, some murder rats show up, and they start coming out of the vents and stuff, of course. And one of them dives down at Gru and like puts all the claws together and hits Gru all at once. He's like thrown over and stuff, and he's thrown down the stairs into some people, but he'll like, as the audience participation reminder is like all about, he's got this like weird ultra tough body, so he's just like nearly unfazed by all of the murder rat big stab attack body slam thing. Doot. So Murder Rat didn't get like a good like stab through on anybody, and then starts lashing out, hits Vista in the face and Crucible in the jaw, apparently Bastard's shoulder. The locations matter because we'll see in a minute that she can teleport through their wounds to be near them since they sustained one of these festering wounds from her. That's a pretty good power. Clock Blocker is able to, she tries to like slide between his legs, and normally she would have been able to because he just like barely touches his foot to her blade as it passes between his legs, but he does freeze her with Clock Blocker freezing. They're trying to tend to the wounds, but they know that there's more rats about. They use this weird like spray that they spray into the wound. And there is a funny moment where Clock Blocker says it smells awful. Then Vista, who's having it sprayed on her own face, is like, I kind of like the smell. But Vista's a freak like that. She loves like battle, receiving scars, receiving wounds, smelling the coagulant that you put on your wounds. Vic says in all caps, Vista! Laugh my ass off. And then, you hear the clanking of a murder rat coming up the stairs. And then there's rattling from above, too, because there's Mannequin. And then, they're talking about the festering wounds for a bit. Bunch of breed bugs are showing up, and they're like, I thought that breed parasites would go for other people. And she's like, but oh no, everybody's full of breed bugs already. It's pretty much nasty. Nasty. And they have to sort of keep in formation to protect their weaker members, because otherwise the, kind of asshole tactics of this group of enemies will of course jump in and just kill them. One of the problems with fighting these Slaughterhouse 9000 people while they're controlled by the control frames is that they are completely willing to make entirely suicidal attacks, and however risky the Slaughterhouse 9 might have been before, they generally wouldn't have gone along with as many suicidal attacks as I think that they go in for during this whole Slaughterhouse 9000 business. Yeah, so Murder Rat, one of them tries to jump through like a big gap in the floors, but Taylor had been setting up all the tripwires, so she just sort of gets caught up in a spider web, and then Vista just shoots her with the like super pistol, and she just dies right then. It's very like, it's usually really hard to kill these bastards, so it's like, it's crazy and funny like how good this little gun that Kid Win gave Vista is. It's just like, boom, like taking people out left and right. Vic says, it is overall helpful that they didn't have a lot of survival instinct. If they had the same amount of grit that the OG had, they would have been so hard to kill. Yeah, I think that's the thing, is if they had the same amount of grit, the same amount of survival instinct, then they would have been, like, way more tenacious and, like, annoying to deal with, like, in the long term, because I think they would have split up more. They would have just, like, individually done all these, like, whatever awful things, like, gone to ground. It's like, it's basically like the threat of what Jack had been saying, that he'd let them off the leash from the beginning. Vic says, I think Jack would rather they kind of get killed off, though, so I figure they're not as fortified. Yeah, I think that's kind of true. Like he, even though it was, like, literally his whole, maybe it was Bonesaw's idea, but I think he thinks that the clones, like, oh, it's good and scary, but he's, like, bored with it before they even start, and he's like, oh, fucking 9 of each one? I hate that. I want all my toys to be different. I hate copies. He'd probably go on a murder spree if he was a gotcha. He'd be at the little gotcha spinner, and he'd get a copy, and he'd be like, ah! He hates random draws because he's always getting repeats. So yes, I do think he's, like, over the idea before they basically even start. Like, another thing that makes Jack such a fuck is that he's just like, I'm bored after, like, one thing happens, and then he's like, I need something new. I really value novelty. It's one of my main core values. I seek novelty. He seems like a real new age fuck. Vic says he should have done one each, and then each 9 member gets 9 jacks. Oh, yeah. So there's only, like, 30 clones of other members total, but then there's, like 240 to 270 depending. Oh wait, no, 9. No, I did the. No, yeah, I did the math wrong. It'd be like 270 is, like, the upper limit, and then, like, the lower limit, I think, would be, like, maybe 45 less than that. So 225. And then yeah, well, we learn that the flat earthers are wrong at that point, because the army of Jacks can't just sweep their knives over the nation with their stupid knives because of the curvature of the earth. So we actually get saved from Jack temporarily by the curvature of the earth. But the problem is when they start strategically dumping Jacks in different areas so that they can get better angles. But yes, I agree, Vic. That's the end of the world, is when there's over 200 Jacks all just slicing. Yeah. Let's see. Man, yeah, whenever I think of Jack, I'm like, yeah, he's such a fuck. And, like, when the bad stuff eventually does happen to him, I'm like, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like that, it's like a nice, gross kind of satisfying of just like, man, I hated Jack so bad. Let's see here. Oh yeah, Crucible's trying to hit some Mannequin with a flame shield, but unfortunately for us, Mannequin's fireproof. But he still kept one Mannequin in a, like, a ball. So take that, Mannequin. Stuck in a superheated ball. The murder rat that was clock blockered unfreezes, and then does what was mentioned before, the teleport, where she teleports through the smoke that's slowly blossoming from Vista's face wound. And tries to immediately murder Vista, but it doesn't work actually because right at the right moment, Taylor lunges forward and says that she uses the boniest parts of her shins to catch the villain's wrist. Oh yeah, I'm here for it. As someone who is stick thin, got the bones to hit you with the elbows, shins. Yeah, do it, Taylor. Skeleton gang, show up. And then, for the non-skeleton section of their team, Gru grabs Murder Rat and throws Murder Rat over a railing. Taylor's worried. She says, reckless, not like him, but he joined the front lines where Bastard was giving 2 mannequins. Because he also covered one group with darkness while lunging ahead. But, I don't know. I think Gru's bound to do stuff like that sometimes. He's a lowercase h hero. He's a good guy. So Clock Blocker does one of his fence of thin lines type things, and then a dog slams a mannequin into the thin lines. The mannequin loses an arm, but the dog starts blood splurting. So Rachel has to call it off in case it will accidentally run itself into the lines again. And then a mannequin shows up that's covered in breed bugs, and then just is a vessel to move all the breed bugs next to them. And then this is when they start desperately fighting the breed bugs. Clock Blocker's freezing some of them. They're worried about them getting in the dog's mouth. The dog has its jaws clenched shut and stuff. Tattletale calls in, or rather, let's see here. Oh yeah, Toggle gets her only moment to hit an enemy. She hits an enemy. Toggle struck it with her baton, and lights flared. Nothing seemed to happen though. Let's see here. But yeah, Tattletale here. I'm in an ugly spot. Help's on the way. Help? Eidolon. We tried to keep things quiet, keep everything off the radar, but he got on. Legends at the other site with Pretender. And then Taylor's freaking out. She's having an argument with Tattletale mid-fight, saying to turn them all away. They're trying to use quarantine procedures with this because they're worried that someone will get turned by Jack and end the world. Tattletale saying she can't get in contact with those three. She says to use Cauldron as a go-between, but Tattletale says that's a no-go. There's continued fighting. Every line of dialogue I'm saying, there's so much fighting happening between it. Although Eidolon shows up, Taylor says, I could sense him now, approaching the building cautiously. He used the laser to pierce the roof. Ice blossom to fill the gap. A glacier in summer. And it's funny because Eidolon just starts blasting. He's like, I'm just gonna keep shooting till I get in. Vic says, TT's over this argument before it starts. Yeah, she's like, I can't contact them. I don't have time to talk to them. You don't have time to talk to me. You need to just calm down, girl. But Taylor's trying to like talk to Eidolon with a bug swarm. But the problem is that Gru is using Hatchetface's power to which is passively turning off their powers. And then Crucible's trying to hold him off with a force field, but it's not working. Taylor's like trying to tell Eidolon to go home. She literally says, Eidolon, and then he goes, Weaver, and then she goes, go home, Eidolon, you aren't a help here. Roasted. And then he's all like, I'm gonna take orders from the one who murdered Alexandria? And then she's like, yes, leave. You're more a danger than help. I can end this. And then she totally threatens him. She's like, so can I. I will end this. Your choice as to how. Do I handle this situation myself, or do I have to kill you, then handle this myself? He doesn't talk back to that. You dare make that threat after killing my comrade in arms? And then she's like, I do. I don't know. I think this back and forth is just like peak Taylor. She's just like completely standing her ground against like a titanic power. She just doesn't give a fuck. And she totally roasts his ass. Your power is dying. It's obvious enough that people are speculating it online in the media. Fucking got him. And then he's like, I'm here to help. This is like, you're violating an Endbringer truce. And then she's like, the quarantine, you idiot. You fucking idiot. And he keeps being like, but you could turn evil. You could turn evil. And like, just totally not taking into account that they have a different power set. He's like, I'm in control. I'm in complete control. I'm not evil like you. So, like, fuck you. I'm having trouble. I'm just making fun of Eidolon too much. I love him as a character, but I love to make fun of him. Let's see here. Yeah, Gru has used the super strength that he got from using, like, sapping the power from Hatchetface / Tyrant / King. And so they have kind of a double super strength thing going on. So he's able to pick up 2 mannequins and just run out of the room. And he's opposed now to the final guy, to Tyrant. Vic says, no, he's cringe always. No. He's cringe always, but I like him it's, like, I like Jack as a character because I hate him so much, and I like Eidolon as a character because he's, like, really, like, tactically powerful, but, like, pathetic anyway, because he's, like, he's got all these powers and he can do all this super strong stuff, but he's like, so I love him. I love that character. Anyway, so this is when we see the hybrid Slaughterhouse 9 member is labeled with a tattoo that says Tyrant across his chest, and would theoretically be untouchable, because of King's power, and like, Hatchetface's power gives super strength and like enhanced durability and stuff. So, you know, you'd have to fight him with no powers. You'd have to kill your way through the other people he'd touched, etc. I don't know for sure when Jack and the Numberman killed King the first time, if they had they at least waited for themselves to not get touched by him, and they clearly cut their way through tons of other victims. But I wonder how many of the other Slaughterhouse-9 members had been touched, when King was using other people as the human shields. Something to think about. Eidolon's still complaining, being like, "You're a murderer. I hate you. What qualifies you to be here when I can't?" And Taylor's just like, "I've got my shit together more than you. You don't have your shit together." And she totally embarrasses and roasts him the whole time. It's terrible for him and great for the audience. Taylor gives a big signal. She's drawn a line of bugs and stuff. An almost perfectly straight line. Not like the world's straightest line ever, but it is made using a bug brain supercomputer. And Foil is shooting, her signature sting bolts. That's right, like the name of the arc, Sting. And so she's stinging the building, and she misses Tyrant barely and gets a concentrated explosion of ice for their trouble. It's exploding into the building because it's piercing all the way through the outside layer and the inside layer. And then they shoot another bolt that's directly between them. This isn't working. She's missing, even though she has this line with the bugs. So then fucking Kid Win just explodes the entire side of the building. He just fires all his guns at once at the same time, explodes the side of the building, and then with this sight line newly shown, Foil shoots Tyrant. They completely break through his power. We don't hear that all the hostages had blood splurts out of their face when he got hit. So seemingly it completely negates that thing, which is good, saving all those victims. So he gets shot in the brain, in the spine, and in the heart. And then he collapsed onto his face. So that's good. That's good. Because you could imagine a world where... Now, this would probably be too powerful of a powers interaction, and Wildbow wouldn't want to put it out there, but you could imagine a world where King gets hit by a sting bolt, and then it stings all of his victims at once, and also does the destruction effect where it attacks all realities at once. I can imagine it. Let's see here. So now the ice side of the building is open, and it will be slowly crusting itself over until the end of the conversation. So Eidolon in the art is at the end of this conversation, but they're looking at each other directly. He's hovering. She says, "Go home. Sit this one out for all our sakes. Please." And then he looks down at the other forces. He breaks eye contact, it says, but I'm not sure how she sees his eyes. Maybe he has holes in his mask, but a lot of the times I feel like Wildbow forgets that everyone's wearing masks. So maybe he has holes in his mask. I'll give it to him. So he broke eye contact. His eyes fell on Foil and Kid Win. I would be impressed with the group of Foil and Kid Win, personally. And then I think this part's good. Then, as if the courtesy of the pleas had given him the ability, he spoke. His voice was quiet enough that I was probably the only one who could hear. "I live for this," he said. "It's what I do. It was an admission of weakness, not a boast. I know." And then she talks him down, from joining them. Eidolon brings up the idea of, you know, there might be some terrible trigger event. He's asking if they're safe, whatever. He thinks that they could go on like some sort of they snap and start killing people. And then Taylor's like, there's a difference though, is that I can be easily killed if I go crazy. And she explains the quarantine again. She says that they're all willing to die for the quarantine. He says he's willing to die. And then she says, well, that's not good enough. Because maybe we couldn't stop you. Vic says, does Taylor really think she contained the monster inside her? Or what did she say addressed? She just like Eidolon for real. I think her point is just that like she's completely killable in a way that he's not if things go wrong. And that like she could just get sniped by someone like Dragon or someone like Eidolon. If it came down to it. And then that's when Eidolon bails. He's like, all right, bye. I mean, the last thing he says is just, I see. But the crowd of hostages start sort of running like they're going to leave the building. And then Taylor draws her knife and steps in their path. And then blows bugs through them. And then she attacks some of the people. And then finds that one of the three she attacks was indeed what she was looking for, was Breed. Vic says he's just so pitiful. Yeah, that's why I love Eidolon. He's got the strongest powers, but he's the most pitiful. Maybe not the strongest powers, but you know what I mean. Up there. Let's see here. So yes, this is when the Breed guy drops them out. I'm gonna read this. 4 small trilobite parrots. I saw one open his mouth wide. I think she targeted all 3 breeds, maybe. She says, of the 3 I in their midst, or I targeted in their midst, I saw one open his mouth wide. 4 small trilobite parasites crawled out, dropping to the ground. His nostrils bulged, and one crawled from his nasal cavity. One crawled from each of his ears. His pants bulged a great deal in the back, then a little in the front. They fell out the bottom of his pant legs. And I was like, oh my god, they did it. On screen, one of them trilobites came out his dong. It happened. Oh my god. Anyway. The Crucible grabs that guy with his force field and then turns it on to full burn and has scorched him out of the place. The other 2 breeds start dropping trilobites as well. And then, but they're fighting off bugs. I guess they're not dropping them super fast, but they're like, we're getting bitten by the Taylor bugs, and the Crucible's just going around and burning them to death one by one. It's some horrific stuff, you know. Imp goes, first kill? Yeah. How the fuck did you get to be a hero with a power like that? Kept it secret from you guys. Kept it secret from the public. You can do a lot with a solid force field bubble. So Taylor knew, but apparently the Undersiders didn't know. I would have, if I was keeping it secret that I could turn my force field into a flame force field, not necessarily call it the Crucible. but maybe I just am easily able to connect the dots and it's not so obvious to other people, but him having a burning force field bubble and being called Crucible makes more sense than him having a regular force field bubble that has no ulterior powers and still calling it Crucible. So they find this weird coffin thing and they open it and it's like, oh no, it's Jack. And they're like, should I burn him alive right away? And it's like, no, it's not really Jack. And then it turns out, oh, they were tricked. It was Nyx's power. And Nyx's power was showing that it's only a teenage boy. And he's asking to be let him out. And then Crucible's like, oh, I almost burned that teenage boy, the innocent victim. And the boy's pounding in the force field bubble saying, please, please, bro. And then Crucible's about to let him out. And then Tattletale's like, wait, it's actually Nyx in there. Her range is too short. She wouldn't be able to create it and have it maintain inside the force field bubble. And then they're like, oh shit, the teenage boy was the illusion. And then they realize that Nyx is weirdly the identical twin of Nyx from the... I mean, they don't say all this, but we realize it's the audience and are like, what? That Nyx is the identical twin sister of the Nyx from the Las Vegas Protectorate, who has a similar power, but her illusion gas does not turn to poison. And when she got the cauldron power, which they're both cauldron capes, then this Nyx that joined the Slaughterhouse 9 got turned into like a red-skinned demon thing, whereas the other Nyx looks the same-ish, but is not a red-skinned demon. Vic said, usually he just heats people enough to make them really sweaty. Makes them easier to fight. Yes, it is a tragic backstory, Vic. I think it's like one of those things that, like, the first time I read it, when there was a Nyx with a Y and a Nyx with an I, and they had nearly identical powers, I was like, what is going on here? But, I'm glad that I know. But yes, illusions within illusions. It wasn't Jack. It wasn't an innocent civilian teenager. It was Nyx herself. And then, even these clones have the cauldron emblem tattooed on them. How cruel. How cruel. And then she's asking if they can convince them to let her go. Taylor says yes, that she could. Gru's like, what are you doing, Taylor? She's too dangerous. And then she's like, if I could get really good information. And Clockwalker's like, I agree. And then she's like, good information? Tell us where Jack is. And I go, free? My word is a hero, Clockblocker answered. He's on his way to visit Nilbog. It's true, Tattletale said. Now let me go. Take me into custody if you have to. All I want is to live. No, Gru said. We can't let her go. No, Clockblocker agreed. Crucible? Nyx snarled, and the fog blasted out of the vents along her body, forming into a shape. She didn't get any further before the orb flared. Her scream was high, loud, and exceedingly brief. Nilbog, I said. And then Vic says, I'm out of this scene. Yeah, I definitely had like a more Taylor-focused, like laser-guided, get the job done read of it the first time. But even now, I kind of just love this scene. It's so, like, hardcore, so brutal. Like, I definitely think it's, it's a more gray thing that they do, but it is so metal, and I'm so here for it, and it's just, like, desperate times call for desperate measures, especially against the goddamn Slaughterhouse 9. Yeah. So that's the end of that chapter. A fucking long one, bro. I think it's a really good one. It fits really well in the arc. It is horrific, which is how the arc is. But it's also triumphant in a way. They take people out like the bad guys, like left and right, and they don't really have any major losses. Like the people who were pre-breed bugged, like you can't go back in time and breed bug them. So they won this scenario about as hard as you can win a scenario. Very impressive stuff. We sort of see that sort of lack of self-preservation that we had talked about in the clones, which we can sort of attribute to the control frames, because we know that they can't go without, or like outside of certain guidelines. The readers of the time wouldn't have known this, but we know we're leading into an interlude, a hinge point in this arc. Things are perhaps going too well. They crushed the previous scenario and this one, as well as the one on the other battlefield. So that's kind of 3 in a row. That's a lot. They're doing really well. I wonder what will happen. I wonder. So yeah, this is the last of a sort of upswing the arc is on for now, and then it will be getting more dire for a while. Characters. I didn't really write any of the bad guy characters because the Slaughterhouse 9 clones are more or less empty vessels at this point, especially story-wise. We don't get any personality from them. I don't know anything about Tyrant. He, like, walks across the room for a couple seconds. Mannequins and murder rats acting like standard mannequins and murder rats. But the characters who are important enough to get named here, I gave them all their cape names. Gru. This is a good chapter for Gru. He not only toughs out, like, some hard hits, he also jumps into the fray with Rachel in a way that surprises Taylor, but I think it just shows he's a very, like, lowercase h heroic character who is very brave, or at least able to overcome any fear that he has. He goes toe-to-toe with the majority of the enemies they have. He's not involved in finishing off the breed people, but that's fine. Vic says, Taylor this chapter is like, this isn't like Gru, but I hate to tell her, it's been 2 years. She doesn't really know him anymore. Sad. Yeah, for all we know, he's even braver and more likely to run into the front lines than when she first met him. So he's cool. He gets some really awesome moments because he gets to, like, power on super strength and just, like imagine in arc 11 through 14, there was just one mannequin, and he was such an impossible, like, guy to fight. And, like, Weld is so strong and, like, was having such trouble, like, doing anything to mannequin. And Gru just fucking walks up to 2 mannequins and grabs them both at the same time and runs upstairs with them like it's fucking nothing. It's, like, such a good moment for him. Anyway. Imp gets a lot of good moments of dialogue, but then I don't remember any specific moments where she gets someone during a fight or anything. Like, I can't, because obviously she could be like, oh, in the shadows, not whatever, but I can't remember her doing anything consequential in the fight, which is rare because usually she's like taking people out left and right. Vic says, I think at this point he's using Tyrant's power, but I'm not sure. But the incorrect guess at the name was Titan that you just wrote, and I appreciate that. He could be called Titan, perhaps. But yes, he's using Tyrant's power, which is like 2 super strength powers at the same time. But even so, like, Weld is also super strong. Like, Weld is very, very strong. But Gru just got there at the right moment, and he grabbed the chain, and you can't throw those hands off, and he just runs up. Also, it helps that Mannequin can't stab him at the moment, because having Tyrant's power gives him even more super durability, so he can't just get ganked. Vic says, yeah, Gru is hardcore this whole scene. Yeah, hell yeah. He doesn't get, like, that many good fights for, like, huge portions of the book, so I'm glad that he gets the, like, a standout scene like this. And it is funny that Imp gets, like, a non-standout scene, because usually she's stealing the show. Rachel's doing her thing. She gets on edge because of how, like, fucked up the situation is, and at different points is like, we just got attack. So she's going and blasting, although she is actually being more cautious than her words would portray. Varian and Foil, they're both there. They're in pretty good spirits. They don't go into the building. Very useful on the back end, but mostly they just get a scene at the beginning where they get to talk about being lesbian stereotypes. And we learn that Parian does not have the power to stop Imp from finishing a sentence. It's impossible. Literally impossible. And now we move on to Kid Win. He's moved on from hedgehog form to gorilla form, so that he can, in big air quotes, maneuver inside the... I agree with Beck. What does that mean? I think what is meant by it is that he's supposed to be able to, like, walk around his little walker, but what it sounds like is so that he can, like, do something within the walker. I don't know. It's fun to make fun of Kid Win. Kid Win, you know, seems to be in good enough spirits as well, for what's going on, and when the time comes, he starts blasting. Toggle gets nothing done. Apparently, we just don't know what Toggle's power does. It would be cool to know what the Shadow Selves or the Mace or the Bursts of Light or any of that do, but that is not for us to know. That is only for Wildbow. Toggle seems very cool. We'll get another momentary shout out of the DrStalker art from the wiki. Beautiful work. DrStalker, we applaud you. This could go in the canon of such works as my own MS Paint art. For anyone who thinks I'm joking, I legitimately love lo-fi bad art. So, you know, future listeners, I am not roasting DrStalker. I am saying good work. Please continue. Toggle section over. Vista seems like very combat ready. We know she's bloodthirsty. She, like, has this, like, super deadly pistol that's really cool seeming, able to explode a murder rat, and able to threaten a mannequin to the point where he's more willing to iceberg the room he's in than take a single shot from the gun. So, doing cool stuff, very hardened, hardcore, Here to roast people. Here to fight. As described during the chapter, she's a freak. We love Vista. Clock blocker, super jaded to to Vista's sorrow. She wants him to be unjaded and joke-filled. But he is jaded. He's got this great backstory now about how everyone thinks he's in love with Taylor, including us, the audience, and how it's ruined his life. Taylor, even after all those times he got to laugh at her for other stuff, he has never evened the scales from that time that Taylor put bugs up his nose in Arc 3, and that he time-stopped bugs in his nose. Man, that's like just what a nightmare. A lot of bad stuff happens in this book, but Taylor does one of the worst things right off the bat. Crucible. We see that Crucible is also just willing to go all out and go for the kill. He seems like a cool character. We don't get that much Crucible stuff overall, but I wish we got more. I think he's cool. Eidolon. Eidolon's like a perfect character. He's like so pathetic. He's got the best power ever, and yet he's just like, no, I'm gonna beat you up, Taylor. Oh, I guess you're right. I'm gonna go. Bye. I love him. He's so good. Anyway, Eidolon, we will talk about you more. Your face is the chapter art. But Legend and Pretender are on the same page as Eidolon, where they're just like, we know we weren't supposed to show up, but we're just gonna show up. Anyway, Tattletale. Tattletale is a good comms person, but is specifically written as being focused on a different fight, so only comes out on the comms like 2 to 3 times. I guess it's like 3, because at the end of the chapter. Not that much characterization, but she is in good spirits, as are many of the characters for how horrific of a whole thing this is. They're like ready to go. And then Weaver Taylor, she is kind of just the same as always. Like Golem had said 2 chapters ago that it's like she's been in stasis for 2 years, and so that may be why she sees Gru having changed and is like, this is shocking. But I think she really she's just the same Taylor that we knew from when she fought Jack before, from when she fought Coil, from when she was killing off Butcher. It's just the same Taylor we've always known. But more sure of herself. So, I guess that's what I take away, is that she's more sure of herself than ever and on the same path. She is unwavering. Yeah. Taylor's a badass. Anyway, powers, knowledge, and world building. We have never seen Murder Rat teleport through someone's wound before, so that was pretty fucking cool. The whole hermetically sealed building with weird ice technology, that was kind of cool. Then what else? Again, this was just a spooky thing. This was theoretically, this is just before dawn in the summer, and everything's covered in ice, and everything's explodes when you touch it. And And you know, again, we saw the breed bugs, and we saw that they'll go for moving victims if they can't find anybody else. Um. One thing is, I kind of thought that the ice here was red, but that's only like slightly implied. It says not a single gap. They'd barely had any time, but they had hermetically sealed the structure, containing themselves and every single resident within. The windows and doors had been sprayed with something red that trickled out of the cracks, only to harden. So I wasn't sure if the red stuff was just the sealant on top of the ice, or if the ice itself was like a weird red thing. Okay, the red ichor is the first fortification, and then the ice. Okay, yeah. Fair enough. As they say. When it explodes, there's an avalanche ice. Or there's the avalanche ice. Okay, yeah. Cool. And then we see a hybrid. Like, we know theoretically that these hybrids are around, but we see one of them in action. And it's quite a powerful combination. And as I said before, like, more than anything else on, like, having one team in one area and one team in the other, like, they were so lucky that Foyle was able to be here to kill him so that they didn't have to just kill their way through all of his victims. Like, they might have had to splorch like everyone in that building. I guess you could theoretically, like, clock blocker him and waste clock blocker and, like... Well, no, because he shuts down powers, so you couldn't clock blocker him. Unless you were Gru, and you were shutting down his power nullification to a degree where you could steal clock blocker's power and shut him down, which would be such a waste of resources. You gotta kill this fucker. They don't have a day to wait. So I think I'm done with the powers knowledge. Oh, I guess the only other thing is that we kind of learned that the quarantine is super severe, and they were trying to keep it completely hidden from the triumvirate. But I want to move on to the audience participation question, which was, this chapter has a subtle nod to the fact Brian's body is tougher than normal because of when he healed himself with Crawler's power in Arc 13. Can you think of any unstated truths like this in other media? I was having a real hard time coming up with how to word the question. The unstated truths thing was something that Vic had come up with, which I think that's the best way we could think of between the two of us, but I still felt like I really like the heart of this question, but not the wording of this question. So Vic had said, I just finished reading We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which centers around a mass murder that happened a few years before, and you are never told or shown what the motivation for the murder was. You have to infer for yourself what you think might happen, might have happened by looking at all the blanks of information. At first I was like, what the hell? But I like the decisions made because they aligned with the themes of the story. Very cool. I can't think of any. I should have written some down, but I do feel like there are some like old series I used to watch where like that would always be something that intrigued me about a series, is if I felt like they really took into account like their own world, and it was just sort of like you would see something happen and it would be small and you could sort of assume that the ripple effects we're having from it. Vic says anything that's LGBT. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. I'm on like the verge of a sneeze and it's not happening. This is a disaster. There we go. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of like characters where if there's like queer subtext, then it might go totally unsaid to be able to stay in at all. I feel a little unsatisfied by my own lack of answer on this, so if I remember, I'll try to write an answer to this for next stream, because I think it's an interesting question that I didn't give enough time to answer. But I do have this next question for the readers, listeners, what have you. 26.x, do you think Saint's actions in this chapter are actually justified? And I mean, like, this is a total Saint hater podcast. We know that. But if anyone in some future iteration, yeah, Vic is just making noises to indicate awkwardness. If anyone ever listens to this and they have like alternate takes, I'm very interested to hear people's 26.x Saint takes. I am going to put on the horrifying music. Actually, probably outro the chapter or speed draw. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna put on the dark ambient music again. So the music used in this episode is Dark Ambient Music, Asylum 01 by CO.AG Music, or CO.AG, unclear. The YouTube link for that is in the stream description here, as well as the link to the Worm wiki toggle article, so that you can have the fan art from that header image by DrStalker. This classic, immaculate work. And then our Discord server link can also be found. All the rest of these links can be found in the stream description and channel description for Discord link. Author of the work being discussed can be supported on Patreon at patreon.com/wildbow. Full text of the work is available for free online at parahumans.wordpress.com, and there is also a fan-made audiobook of the entire work at audioworm.rain-online.org. Craig says cheers for the stream, and I say cheers as well. Bye, Vic. Bye.